Hello, Potter Than Hellions. Welcome. Damn, wrong podcast. Hey, this is Steve from the Potter Than Hell podcast. Welcome to the show. This is the Shout It Out Loudcast. But before we get going, I want to ask my guy something. BC, are you feeling low with no place to go?
Yeah, and I'm thinking I'm going to scream.
Hey, BB, do you recall Days in the City?
Yeah, and I think back, oh, what a pity.
And hey, Dylan, do you feel uptight on a Saturday night?
Yeah, man, my heater's broken. I am so tired.
Well, I'm going to throw another log on the fireplace and listen to the Shout It Out Loudcast. Oh, yeah.
Steve, stand by my side, and I'll be next to you.
Oh, God. Shut the fuck up, BC.
Hello. Hey, what's up there, Kiss Army? It's Tom Zeus with another episode of Shout It Out Loudcast. Episode 84, aptly titled, Sean Delaney's Hellbox. Tom, how you doing?
What's going on, buddy? We got a unique episode here, a topic that not many people have talked about and covered. So this is going to be this will be interesting and fun for the listeners.
Absolutely. How's life?
Well, it's 95 degrees again, like fourth day in a row. I can't wait to see my electric bill, but first world problems complaining about air conditioning. So, but that's about it. Nothing else going on here. What about you, buddy? I know we got some playoff hockey going on.
Yeah, it's like deja vu, playoff hockey, Bruins stuff. But at least I'm not going to every game and coming home at 2 a.m. because of 5 overtimes and things like that. But yeah, NHL hockey playoff is back. NBA will be starting up, and I think they play baseball right now. Do they play baseball?
Dude, the Red Sox are so fucking bad right now. What a great year for them to suck when no one cares and no one watches. It's terrible.
Yep. Yeah, baseball's looking pretty bad right now.
Yeah.
But we still have our KISS podcast. And because we got a great interview today to be played with you guys, we want to get right to the rest of the stuff. So first, Tom, we did our poll from last week's episode. What was it?
Yeah, so last week we welcomed our buddies Sonny Pooney and Steve Wright from Potter Than Hell to play another round of KISS Jeopardy. And one of the categories for KISS Jeopardy was one-word song titles. So we figured that would be our Monday poll. Now, obviously, there's a ton of one-word song titles. We tried to mix it up a little bit and not use the big hits. So we threw in Mainline, Firehouse, Parasite, and She. Mainline is obviously the deepest cut out of that group. The other ones, for KISS fans like us and KISS fans like you, those are hits. But we didn't want to put, Deuce or Unholy Forever. Try to mix it up a little bit. No surprise, Parasite ran away 50% of the vote. Firehouse 24%, She 20%, and right up the rear, Mainline 6%. And I think that's all Zeus and his burner accounts that voted for Mainline.
Yes. I have burner accounts. I'm not like Sonny Pooney burner accounts.
No, you don't have that many. No.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
So KISS Jeopardy, another game show we did. Sonny had the questions, did an awesome job as the host and coming up with the questions. No offense to him, buddy. He was so much better this time than the previous time. And I think we got good feedback about it. This was the most fun I've had on a game, not because I won, but because the questions were there. It was actually something that me and you and Steve could actually guess. And it was, I thought, his best effort, at least on our show, as far as game shows go. What do you think?
Game show lovers? What's a game show lover? What are you talking about, game show lover?
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Now, granted, I scored 0 again for the second straight Jeopardy game, but
wrong.
But like I even said, it's because the questions, there were more questions where I felt comfortable taking a shot. And the categories were fun. The questions were fun. One-word song titles, alternate song lyrics, Pandemic Paul, album covers, just interesting categories, fun categories where we all had a shot. So again, kudos to Sonny and Steve for just joining us and having a good time.
Yeah, and you think about it though, Tom, if you've got a few answers under your belt and you got some numbers, you're going to take a chance. Unlike the previous time we played, if we're down to 100, 200 points, we're not answering questions because you're like, we can't take the chance. But
exactly.
You took a chance because you're playing the game, but you hit the buzzer for both of us did for way more than we did the last time we played.
And that's what made it fun, just even having a chance to answer.
Exactly.
Yep.
And we got some feedback on YouTube. Our buddy Marty White said, always a gas when Sonny is on, but I don't want to see him in tights.
I don't remember what that's from. I mean, I don't want to see him in tights either.
Yeah, but he said something about being in tights or something like that. And, you know, he wears the required uniform, Tom.
You wear tights? No, I don't wear tights. I wear the required uniform. Tights. Shut up.
Tights.
On podchaser.com, you remember you can give us 5-star reviews there and also leave comments. So we got a few there. And this is from Mac and Maddie. Played in the car. I would have won against both these guys. There was 3 of us playing. Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then Aces High gave us 5 stars as well. And he's actually asked the question, is this game available somewhere? Where did you get the categories in game cards? I would love to buy and play at home with my imaginary friends. Zeus was on fire on this one.
But
you want to take this?
But see, that's the genius of Sonny Pooney is he makes people think that this stuff is such high quality that the listeners don't even understand that Sonny Pooney created these out of thin air on his own.
Hey, Sonny Pooney, what a piece of shit that guy is now.
So in other words, we need to team up with Sonny and create our own Kiss game.
He's right.
For a home version, right? For people to play.
Yeah, I'm sure Gene Simmons from Kiss will approve that.
You're infringing on my copyrights. Kevin Jepson on Facebook. Holy crap, Sonny Pooney. Nice job on the questions. That was fun.
Yep.
And Zeus did not say, what is jungle?
Dude,
LOL, just saying, had a blast listening. Let's hit that.
That was like one of the overriding things on feedback. Did we miss that? Because I
said this. Listen, I thought I said it because I said that's whatever the answer was. That's unmasked or whatever the answer was. So I thought I said, no, I said, what is unmasked? And Sonny thought I said it because I said that instead of what is unmasked or something like that.
Because we did catch you a couple times, like, you know, we didn't do a question, but everybody's like, Zeus didn't say what is jungle. And I'm like, I don't remember. I don't remember that.
Brought it up. And then he's like, no, he said it. I'm going, yeah, I said what? It didn't occur to me like I fucked up. And I said, oh, what do you call it? Afterwards, of course, I caught myself. It was so far in the lead at that point anyways, I would have still won on that anyways.
Oh, yeah.
But that did get brought up. A few people brought that up on social media that I didn't say it. Our buddy, Jack Pinocchio. No clues. 15,000 exclamation points. I lost my shit on that. Ha, ha, ha. We got a lot of comments on that one.
Yeah, they were all from old men or ex-cons who understood what those clues meant for fucking dominoes.
Sean McNair, I predicted right finally. Now, I believe that's probably in reference to your coming soon post that you cryptically play. I thought that was pretty obvious, the one you put in.
Dude, I thought it was so obvious. Turd Ferguson from Saturday Night Live. Jeff. I'm like, and people, somebody actually sent us a message. They thought we were going to have Norm Macdonald on the show. I'm like,
yeah. And then our buddy Heavy Mayo put on, who now uses Facebook.
Yes.
Zuez. It must be the Spanish version of Zeus with a swift ass kicking.
Zuez wouldn't be the only Spanish character from the Jeopardy episode. We had
that's easy. We had the Spanish luchador, our friend of the show, Chris Jericho. He was a new character that became on the show.
Yeah, and he did the tag team with Hacksaw Jim Dugan.
Fucking Steve. You know, he's part you can get on the Kiss Mexican editions of the fucking Unmasked album with Pico Chris on the cover, Pablo Stanley, Juan Simmons, and what was Ace? I don't even know what is it, Ace. I say Ace in Spanish.
I don't know. Oh shit.
Swallow Fraley, whatever his name
Yeah.
is. So that's my feedback I got. What do you got? Do you have anything there, Tom?
Yeah, so Twitter, our buddy Murph had a great one. He used that famous GIF. I don't even know if a lot of people know what it's from, but it's Donald Sutherland. It's like the final scene from Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Yeah. When he points and makes that horrified look, and he goes, "Awesome episode," but the reaction of listeners when Zeus got credit when not framing the response as a question.
Oh, fucking the Bobby Brady Murph character comes out.
I told you, he's the resident Shout It Out Loudcast home monitor.
You're breaking a rule. People can't just go around breaking rules. Bobby, you're safety at school, not at home. A rule is a rule, at school or at home. You're going to be on my report. What report? I'm turning in a report to Mom and Dad at the end of the week.
Fucking Bobby Brady Murph.
Rule's a rule. Joel Hoffman, another Poon Dog mind-bending set of questions. Awesome show as usual. Jungle. Zeus definitely did not answer in the form of a question. Love waking up Saturday morning with my V8 juice and celery laughing with you guys. Great way to start my day. Twisted Kister says, Hulk Hogan. Heavy Mayo again on Twitter. Sonny Crush it this week as host, and his questions are very creative. Smoke Show 19 said, "These clues are ridiculous. This is dumbed down." So apparently Smoke Show 19 thought the questions were hard.
Wow.
JR says, "Pandemic Peddler Paul's Big Masked Adventure." Oh, we have more to say about that. LT Shoes says, "Jesus Christ, I laughed so hard I had to stop on my walk to work to catch my breath." Oh, I like hearing that stuff. Uncle Paulie, another amazing episode. My highlight this week was Tommy making it feel like there was actual money on the line during the whole episode. So that's Twitter. Awesome stuff as usual. And then we got a couple emails. We got one from Hollywood Pooney's brother, Danny. Says, "Hey fellas, just wanted to send a quick note on your recent Jeopardy. Great episode as always. This round of Jeopardy was way more practical for KISS fans to answer, and I feel like I learned a lot. By the way, Indigenous Australian Apparatus is one of the worst KISS songs ever." Boomerang, that was great.
Yeah.
And then we got Mac Matty simply says, "I would have killed all three of you bozos."
Oh, at least this time he said 3.
Yeah, on email. Oh, God. And then our buddy Tony Smith again chimes in. "Hey, dudes, about the recent review you got from rock drummer Rattlesnake on iTunes."
Yeah,
it's me, Tony Smith. "You realize what I meant by you guys giving me the business over the past year. I love the Jeopardy episode. Tell Sonny Poontang I said hi. My famous last words, read my body. Is my lowercase J big enough?" Fuck. Tony's always an adventure reading his emails, but no, great stuff as always. The feedback, the interaction. That's why, even though you guys, the game show, it's a great, fun listen for you guys. But like everybody's saying, you can play along, and that just makes it even more enjoyable.
Yeah. No, and obviously we have a bunch more. We try to get in and mix up as many people as we can, get some new people in there. So, we want you to realize we don't have just the same two people commenting, or the same two people throughout our show.
That's
so
also
we try
true.
to mix up some of you guys and get some new voices out here to be heard.
Yep.
Tom, what do we usually go to is, I don't know why I said that in the form of a question. See what you fucking did now?
Jeopardy, everything's a form of a question. What is KISS news?
What is going on in KISS world for 200 now?
So yeah, we're recording on Wednesday, August 12th, and the big news that just broke a little while ago while we're recording was that the North American tour has finally been rescheduled. We've been talking about it for weeks. It was supposed to start up August 28th, so they waited for the last minute almost. So it has been rescheduled to 2021, and our show has now been moved to the first show of that leg. It's now, it's now going to be August 18th.
Just like New Hampshire, Tom.
Yeah, exactly. So August 18th, David Lee Roth is still going to be part of the show. It looks like there's only one show, the one in Atlantic City, where David Lee Roth will not be appearing with them. But as of right now, David Lee Roth will be on that show. Go to kissonline.com, or it's also on our social medias. By the time you listen to this, you will have seen it. But that has finally been rescheduled. So no KISS for 2020.
Wow.
Yeah, we knew it was happening. But you can get your KISS fix with the Vinnie Vincent Let Freedom Rock Bash coming to Nashville, Tennessee on October 17th and October 18th. Go to VinnieVincent.com for more information. I am not making this up, and holy shit, this poster is unbelievable, dude. We had somebody, I think it might have been History Science Theater. They said he's standing between two huge jets, but they look like Decepticons. Is Vinnie Vincent a Transformer? But yeah.
Not touching that.
I know. Exactly. I'm not touching it either. Let Freedom Rock Bash, VinnieVincent.com, October, Nashville, Tennessee. I don't know if that's going to happen, but holy shit, we will be covering that if it happens. That's going to be insane.
Vinny, and he has like a photo. What does that say about him that he still uses photos of his biggest like hair metal?
Yep.
Right. Image.
Yep.
Like he would prefer that image than the fucking Joyce DeWitt look that he's got going now.
Yeah, it looks like a Halloween costume. I mean, like you said, this is straight out of like the All Systems Go, the solo.
Yeah. You know, like those websites and stuff, all the Halloween costumes.
Yep.
It's like 70s man.
Yeah.
The dancing doctor man. And everyone's like always like in a pose. It's like hair metal man. And that's him.
That's him. Hair metal Vinny. That's exactly what it is.
Hair metal man.
I hope just for entertainment purposes that thing actually happens. But we'll see.
Of course. Good luck to him. And I know we know there's a lot of Vinny guys out there, so hope it works out for him.
Yep.
There was the anniversary of Unplugged.
Yes, that was last week, the 25th anniversary of the recording of Unplugged. Holy shit, man. I remember exactly where I was watching that. What an event. 25 years goes by way too fast, but people were all excited about that on social media, posting videos and just how much that meant to them. And obviously probably maybe one of the biggest days in all of history for sure.
Yeah, and Bruce Kulick did something about that, just put a YouTube clip together of that. Obviously, It's iconic. The MTV portion of it, the disc, the live version of it, maybe my favorite live version of any Kiss thing. We'll get to that, and we're going to cover that at some point and do a whole episode on it. But Unplug is just a great period of history.
Absolutely. Yep. Everybody loves it. And that'll be exciting to cover when we do get to it.
Yeah. And then your buddy still had his Pee-wee bike adventures going around town.
Oh, but this time he pulled down his mask for the picture. Oh.
And
God.
why does he do like such close-ups?
Just finishing up my 8-mile ride. Get out there. Be safe. Okay, crooked man. Any horror movie fans out there, you know who the Crooked Man is. He's a character. So
I don't know. Is that really somebody?
The Crooked Man is a character from a horror movie. Yes.
Is this
we have pandemic
all fucked up with his eyebrows?
No. It actually looks like nothing like Paul, but we call him. I like nicknames, so Pandemic Paul, Crooked Man, whatever. Like
they just go out, live, be safe. And you know what it is? And he's got that fucking lemon face, his lemon lips are in like huge effect. Now, we're not fucking God's gift to good looks, but and you know what it is? I don't blame him, because if you read the comments, there are a million people that are like, oh, you say it. Yes, Paul, you're such the best. Oh my God, you're so handsome. It reminds me of Little Nicky when they're like, oh, you're so handsome. And he's like,
don't be afraid to show your face. You're such a handsome boy.
It's like Little Nicky. Those lemon lips. It's like the corner. Like if you put a lemon on its side, like the middle part is fat, but the end part is real short.
It's like bad. I mean, he's never been accused of having any work done to his face, but I think he may have, and he did it.
Yeah, he has.
He must have done it.
Eyebrows and shit.
Yeah, he must have done it himself, or maybe he had fucking Ace do it or something.
Fucking Frankenstein shit. And he wasn't a bad looking man to start with, but just
Wait, you just came up with another potential nickname, especially with Halloween season approaching. Franken Stanley?
He's got fucking bolts out of his neck. He's just, God bless Paul. We love him, but this
Absolutely.
During the pandemic, this version of Paul Stanley is like, what the fuck, dude? Anything but Kiss.
Yep.
It's like, I need to be respected, and I need to be a voice of reason out there, and be the one to bring people out of the wilderness, and like, shut the fuck up, dude. Talk about Kiss. Talk about your fans. Talk about the music. Talk about the album. Remember, you was doing that for a little bit, and then it just vanished. And now he's fucking doing wheelies on his fucking PK Ripper BMX bike.
He's like, popping fucking endos down friggin' his Chula Vista Boulevard or wherever the fuck he is.
Mushroom grip fucking bike handles. Fucking,
and he's fucking rocking his Skyway mags as he's friggin' cruising.
And he slides with the back tire doing that. Yeah. Yeah. And he kicks down his kickstand. He's like, "What's up, boys? Paul Stanley's here to rock it." Oh my God! Just fucking,
he's fucking popping wheelies, no stopping.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's this week's episode of Pandemic. Paul, who knows what's going to happen? But I'm hoping today's Wednesday. By the time you listen to this, I'm hoping he would do something about the postponement of the tour. Like, it's the right thing to do. We can't wait to see you guys. We were looking forward to this fall. We'll see, like, something to keep the Kiss fans, satiated, for lack of a better word.
Your other favorite band there, Metallica, is doing that drive-in theater. I know they're getting shit for the cost of it. If you break it down, technically it's not a bad cost, but at least they're doing something creatively.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Fuck, can't Kiss do something creatively now? How about doing a Q&A with fans live? How about, he was doing that for 5 seconds. And I think it is because he can't take any trolls. He will fucking lose it. Like Laser Beam Paul when the fucking concert, like he won't be able to control himself if someone says like something derogatory about him.
Yep. I'm glad you brought that up about Metallica, because I just want to talk about that real quick, because after Kiss, Metallica is my band. And I understand they're taking a hit for the cost, but the one thing that they're doing is, like you said, they're being creative. Okay. This is a concert. It's going to be newly recorded. It's going to be mixed and edited, the sound engineered. It's going to be specially made for a drive-in theater. Yes, I understand you're going to be seeing them on a drive-in screen. It's $115 per car. If you get a bunch of your friends, it's $30. It's a night out to see Metallica. I understand. Again, it's a drive-in. It's not a concert, but it's something for the fans. Mm-hmm. And I've said this before too, throughout this entire pandemic, every Monday, they call it Metallica Mondays. You go on their YouTube page for free. They stream entire concerts from all throughout their career. You're going to tell me that Kiss couldn't do that on their YouTube page? Hey, guys, check us out tonight. We're going to do 1979 Largo, the Dynasty Tour. Tune in to check it out. Like, you can't do that?
Yeah, and one of the person's comments on it, tonight is Paul's night. The next night, Gene does it. And the more recent concert, Tommy Thayer can do it.
Right. Something. I give credit to a lot of these artists out there, and especially Metallica's, but other people, they're doing things because they know their fans want something from them. And I know we say this every week, and if we're being a broken record, too bad. We talk like this because we're so passionate about the band, and we miss them, right. I guess. And it's just it's just frustrating to see these other artists using this time to the best of their advantage to keep their fans happy.
Yeah.
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 So that being said, you're getting all worked up.
I am getting all worked up. And
what do you
when
do when you're all worked up?
Well, when you get worked up, you gotta go to adamandeve.com, because free stuff is awesome. But free stuff to spice up the bedroom is even better. Select almost any one item for 50% off, and then Adam and Eve loads on the free stuff. Use promo code Loudcast at checkout and get 10 tantalizing free gifts. A sexy item for him, special gift for her, and a third item you will both enjoy. And those 6 free spicy movies. and free shipping. Promo code Loudcast, adamandeve.com.
Nice. So today's episode, Tom, came about, and I think we talk about it a little bit in the interview.
Yep.
So we're going to speak with Brian Canard. Who's Brian Canard? Well, he's the person who wrote the book, basically, Sean Delaney's Hellbox. And Brian is a ghostwriter for this story, which is Sean's story. We all know Sean Delaney as one of the early parts of history, and he played a major role. I've brought him up many times on the show. We had an episode that we talked about overrated, underrated things. I brought up that felt his role in Kiss was very underrated. He had a role in, coming up with the themes, coming up with the character themes, coming up with Gene's blood, coming up with the costumes, the choreography, some of the song development. He was their tour manager. He did all the pyro stuff. He did you name it, he did it. So he was part of Coin management, and him and Villicon were partners, along with Joyce Not DeWitt Iowitz, right?
Yep.
I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly.
Yep.
And they were Kiss's managers in the beginning of their career. And Sean, unfortunately, had a falling out with the band later on. And, and he passed away pretty young, sadly. And he obviously had a fascinating life. And he was talking about, he finally came out of the woodworks after 10 years, and he started going on the Kiss convention circuit. And he was talking about that he had this book. He wanted to put out this book. He's got a book written, and it's going to be an autobiography. He's got all these secrets and all this stuff, and he was going to do it. He's going to do it. Well, he didn't know how to write a book, and he got Brian Canard to do it for him. And Brian talks about the story and how they got together and how he ended up writing the book for him. So the book is basically Sean's words. They're not Brian's words. Everything is directly from Sean. So it's about as an autobiography, although we call this a biography. Everything's written with Sean's exact words. This is stuff coming from, straight from the horse's mouth. It's his dealings with Kiss, his life, his, the rise and fall of Sean Delaney. It's a short read. And I basically came into this, Tom, when I just started doing some more research about Sean Delaney and found the book. And, it was pre-internet stuff for me, afterwards when I got back into Kiss. And I was like, holy shit, is this real? What is this? And I found it fast. I ordered the book, read it. I thought it was incredible. I had you, I think that was a Christmas gift for you.
It was.
Yeah.
Yep.
Got it
was
for Christmas. And I was like, here you go. Merry Christmas. There's your homework. Read it. And we reached out to Brian, who couldn't be any nicer. And here we are. I know I've spoken a lot. So, Tom, let me turn it over to you.
Yeah, no, I give Zeus credit for finding this book. And like Zeus said, Kiss fans, if you're listening to us, you love the band, and Sean Delaney is regarded as that fifth member of the band. And his story is tragic. It's riveting. It's informative. It's passionate. Brian, he will tell you the story when we play the interview about how he met him and all the goings on with Sean. We were happy to have Brian on because for his sake and for Kiss fans' sake, we want to get this book out there because it's a must read. Zeus and I have read every Kiss book ever published, and I'm sure you guys have too. There's a lot of things in this book that neither one of us knew, and the book is very short, and in those pages were a lot of things that we never knew. So without further ado, Zeus.
Yeah, let's get into the interview. This is the interview with Brian Canard, the author of Sean Delaney's Hellbox.
We got a little surprise for you tonight. We're going to turn the microphone over to
Brian Canard. And you want to tell everybody who Brian Canard is?
Brian Canard is the author / publisher of Sean Delaney's Hellbox, which is Sean Delaney's autobiography. And we're so happy to have Brian on here to talk about this book. which every Kiss fan out there, everybody listening to our show right now, it's one of the most underrated, unknown Kiss books out there, and it's a must read. Brian, welcome to Shout It Out Loudcast. We're so glad you could join us.
Thanks a lot for having me. Really appreciate it.
Awesome.
So while we were talking off the air, Brian, we found out you are a Kiss fan. And as usual, we do our Murph questions to get them out of the way first, right off the top. Very simple for you, buddy. The first one, who's your favorite Kiss member?
My favorite Kiss member has to be Gene Simmons.
That's the correct answer.
Can you tell Tom's the Gene one? And mind you, I know with every Kiss fan, we always preface this with today because, you know, these things always change over time. Favorite Kiss song?
Oh, I would have to say, that's a tough one. I mean, Rock and Roll All Night, as cheesy it may sound, is Love Gun. I've always loved Love Gun. Of course, I love their disco album, Dynasty. I will admit that. A lot of people. But
love it.
Made for Loving You, Baby. I mean, you know, that's anytime it's playing, I'll crank it up. Plus, I have it on my, I have the music, and I like to work out to Kiss songs. And I even like the stuff in the 80s, too, believe it or not. I like stuff from Animalize and even the years where they didn't have the makeup on. They had sort of a different sound, but it was still Kiss nonetheless. But I thought me personally, I thought they transitioned into the hairband era just fine right before they retransitioned back into the makeup.
Absolutely. Yeah. Perfect. Well said.
Yeah. When you got Gene and Paul, it's still Kiss. And that's the difference, right? So next, favorite Kiss album?
I would have to say Kiss Alive.
Okay.
What about studio album?
Studio album. Do their solo albums count?
You can.
Sure.
You can say solo album.
Gene Simmons had a great solo album, I thought. Wishing Upon a Star. I don't know if that was the greatest song to put on there, but you got a guy, he really went totally different with that.
Yep.
Cool.
All right.
That's great. I mean, I wonder who the producer was on that, but that's a good one to pick, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Have you been to any Kiss concerts? And if so, how many?
I have been to 3 in my lifetime. The first one was in junior high, and I was 14 years old. That might have been the last time they were in makeup.
Okay.
Wow. Originally makeup, and then they came out of the makeup. And I think Ace Frehley had already left.
Okay.
So
wow.
They had his replacement in there. Not the replacement.
You got to see Vinny.
Exactly. So,
nice.
And it was good nonetheless. But then in later years, I saw him. When I was in the military, I saw him overseas. I saw him in Berlin. I actually went to this last concert that was in Phoenix when they came to Phoenix.
Yeah.
Yep.
The thing about Kiss, and I also saw them when they were doing a little headline show in Vegas. I want to say maybe 8-9 years ago. I think they were at the Hard Rock Cafe.
Okay.
And it for some reason it never gets old because it's one of the few concerts you can go to and sing along with every single song. It's predictable. You're just having a good time with other fans, and it's multi-generational too. You've got parents bringing their kids who are bringing their kids to the same concerts.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And the last one we're going to ask you about. What is your favorite Kiss memory?
My favorite Kiss memory had to be when I want to say I was 7, maybe 8. My uncle was 14. And this was right around the time where Kiss was into Marvel Comics and everything too. And I used to love sitting in it's weird to call him my uncle because at the time he was more like my cousin. But, we would sit there and we would look at all the Kiss comic books. And of course, Stan Lee actually inking with some of their blood in the comics.
Yep.
And so cool because not only did they look cool on their album covers and everything, but of course in in the comic books, they could be accentuated to be, they're all powerful and the chest are pumped out and everything. But a more recent memory that I had was several years back, because I go to the San Diego Comic-Cons all the time.
Yeah.
And I went to the panel that had Gene and Paul, and this is when they released the Scooby-Doo movie.
Oh, yeah.
A couple back. And they had some classic hits in there, and it was really psychedelic watching Scooby-Doo. But I was an old fan of Scooby-Doo when they used to have the Harlem Globetrotters. They would meet Batman and Robin. So I think this really brought me back to my childhood when Scooby-Doo in the gang is meeting Kiss. So, and you got to give it to Gene and Paul. They just won't let it die. I mean, it's still relevant. They're still all over the place. They're still thinking of a way to market themselves even after all these years.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No,
very cool.
That would make Sean proud. Put him in Scooby-Doo for the next generation, right?
I would have thought, though, knowing Sean, he probably would have thought he deserved a piece of that money from the Scooby-Doo and from everything. He was really, really torn by that. I think it's something that haunted him the rest of his life, is the fact that, and it's detailed in the book, is the fact that, he came from a time when a handshake was a deal, and he didn't get anything that down in ink on paper. He didn't have anything. And so I think when I was introduced to him, he was happy that somebody who was willing to, because I took it for no money at all. I said, yeah, I'll help you. I'll write this story for you. And, and I was introduced to him, and we had a lot of morning breakfast sessions where we were sitting at a diner, and all he wanted to tell his story was you had to keep him supplied with cigarettes and food. And the guy smoked and smoked and smoked and talked, and we must have went through cassette tape after cassette tape after cassette tape. And then I had to go through it and try to par his life story and all his talking into a book, because from what I understood, Sean had tried this several other times, and he also had some ramblings that he had written down as well. But he could never get anybody to commit to it and actually help him and see him through the process. Mm-hmm. And what I did.
Wow.
So let's take that and kind of start with that as a starting point, because anybody who's listening to this right now and might not be familiar with this book is probably wondering, on the cover it says Sean Delaney's Hellbox, at the bottom Bryan J. Canard. So you kind of talked about that a little bit with what you were just saying. Tell us how you connected with Sean. How did this just happen? What's your background? Let's start with that.
Well, I was writing comic books, and way back I was doing screenwriting work in Hollywood, and I was writing, pilots for, network shows. Some of them would get shelved and never saw the light of day. When I did the comic book, the Villicon Chronicles, I needed an artist. And there was an artist, his name was Roy Young, and he worked with Chaos Comics, but he also came from Todd McFarlane's Spawn. There's a whole little collective in Arizona of people who are in comic books and stuff.
Sure.
Now, Roy Young was, I guess this is before I had met him, before he got his job at Chaos Comics. He was a student at an art school. I think it was Phoenix Art School. And he said this crazy old man came in one day and said, "Hey, I'm working with a band in Europe. They're going to be as big as Kiss." And he told his wild yarn about, and he hears a bunch of wide-eyed kids going, "I never heard of you. You're who?" And he's telling all his stories. And he said, "I need an artist who can do me an album cover. I have absolutely no money, can't pay you, but I need someone to do an album cover." And this is what Roy Young did. So Roy Young raised his hand and said, I'll do it. No money, nothing. I'm fascinated with your story. I'm a metalhead. Go ahead. And so I guess that's how he got to know Sean Delaney. So years later, when I'm working with Roy and we're putting together the graphic novel, the Villicon Chronicles series, we had a lot of time where we would talk. Our desks were adjacent to each other. I'd be doing the writing and maybe pitching ideas, and he'd be sitting there pumping out, maybe 4 or 5 pages a day of artwork. He was he was a he was everything. He could do the inking, the drawing, he could do all that stuff, the coloring. He started to tell me about, this is when he started telling me this story. And he says, you know what? I'd really like you to meet Sean. I mean, the guy really wants to write a book and he doesn't know where to begin. And he starts to tell me this whole yarn. And I'm like, I love Kiss. I mean, I grew up with Kiss. This is great. You know, we're listening to Kiss songs. So he goes, all right, well, I'm going to set it up. This guy's kind of a recluse. He lives in different people's houses. He just bounces around. He was from Utah, but I guess for some reason he was in Phoenix and could never get out of Phoenix. So he introduces me to him, and he doesn't tell me a lot. And he goes, oh, yeah, by the way, this guy's gay, too. I go, well, no problem. I got no problem with that. And he goes, yeah, but he's out there. He just says things, and it's just crazy. Okay, well, where do you want to do this meeting? He goes, why don't we meet at your house first? I go, I don't even know this guy. You want to meet at my house? Well, let's do it out there and everything. So he brings Sean over. Sean smells so bad of smoke, you know. He's wearing like a rock shirt. It wasn't a Kiss shirt or anything. I can't even remember. He had some group on it, but he really looked scrungy. And so he walks in my house, and the first thing he starts doing is he's looking around. He's just looking around at everything, and he like he's an interior decorator or something. And then he looks at me and goes, "You're gay, aren't you?" And I go, "No, I'm not." I said, "I'm married." He goes, "It doesn't matter if you're married. You're gay." And I so I'm getting into an argument with this guy about my sexuality, which I was totally confident. I go, "I'm not gay." And he goes, "All right, whatever. You know, if you want to believe that, then that's fine." And I said, "You can't smoke in my house, though." And he goes, "I got to smoke. If I can't smoke, we can't do any interviews." And so I go, "All right, we can sit out on the patio." This is like July or August in Arizona. So we sit up. I don't have a system or anything. We sat out there for 2 hours, sweating our asses off. Wet. I don't have any hair. It's just dripping off of me. It's dripping off of him. Roy's he's a long hair. He's dripping sweat. And Sean didn't care. He just continued to smoke and continued to talk. And I said, "Do you think we could continue this maybe tomorrow?" And so we agreed to do it the next day, but we agreed to a restaurant that was near this place he was living. And for the next 2 weeks after that, we continued to meet. And we got all this down. I had just tons of cassette tapes. I mean, it was a different time. It was different. This is how many years ago? So anyway, I got all these tapes, and I told him, I go, "Okay, I'm going to have to go through these, and I'm going to have to." And he goes, "No, just put it down exactly the way I said it." And I go, "Hey, that sounds great, but what I need to do is I need to put it down to where, because you got lots of pauses and you'll go into different things. It has to be a narrative. There has to be a narrative and he wanted it to come from him." Yeah. And I said, "We can do that." That's why I don't talk about it as if, and then Sean told me this, and then Sean told me that. It was written as if this is the way Sean said it. And I felt really good about it, but I had other projects and stuff going on. Sean starts to call me every single day, asking, "Is it done? Is it done? Is it done?" It became like babysitting an old man. This is not how the process works. He goes, "Well, I got to go to Europe," because I guess he had some other things going where he was getting paid to write songs for a European band. It was a country band. They were going to pay him. And they did. And he ended up going overseas, and I saw some YouTube. He was doing YouTube videos. He would go to different conventions, and that's how he was making his money. He got to be really sick, and he went back to Utah. I was signing at a convention. Again, we were talking constantly. And I think I'd seen him once or twice when he came through Phoenix. We would meet, and he would go through this thing. I got to tell you more. I got to tell you more. And we would tape, but he was starting to say the same things over and over and over. Mm-hmm. And people are really going to be interested in where your life is at now. Let's talk about the country band that you're working with. And he didn't want to. He told me at the time, he goes, "I started talking to Bill again, Bill O'Coin."
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I said, yeah, well, what were you talking to him about? He goes, I told him that I'm writing this book. And I told him who you are. And Bill told me that I shouldn't write it. It makes me want to get it written even more. He said that he had a direct link into Paul Schaefer at the time. And he says, Paul told me if I get this book done, I'm going on the Letterman show. And I'm just going to open up and tell everybody about it. So he was so excited. So it lit a fire. I was trying to get this done. I was at a convention, and so was Roy. We were both signing at the convention. And I guess he had his niece, her name is Dee Dee. She called us and said, Sean's up here in Utah. He passed away this morning.
Oh.
He passed away? Yes, he passed away. He's dead.
Oh, man.
And exactly. And we're like, wow, I just had talked to him maybe 14 hours ago. So I'm sitting on this, potential. I mean, this is huge. I don't want to do it without his consent, without him being here. So anyway, they said, so we've been talking to the members of KISS. They're going to pay for his funeral. We want you guys to come up, and we also want to talk about this book that Sean said you were doing. And I was like, oh boy, here we go, man. I'm telling you, we're going to get stuck in a quagmire here. Now, the good thing is I'd already taken care of that. And I had, me and Sean, we signed documents and everything. Mm-hmm. They gave him as much right to the book as I had. So I could pitch it and do whatever, but so could he. In no way, shape, or form was I going to infringe upon his story. So we went up to the funeral, and, we drove from Phoenix to Salt Lake City. We were at the funeral. He had it at, there was a funeral parlor, and then he had the after event at a Latter-day Saint church, because his family members were still in the church. And I can remember when we went to the funeral, his casket was open. He wanted an open casket. He actually had KISS music playing. He didn't have his casket though. He had KISS playing, and people were putting things in his coffin. He was buried in a KISS t-shirt.
Wow.
And it was really shocking and weird to just look at him there.
I'm sure.
And we walked by, kind of paid our respects. When we left, we took pictures. Me and Roy took pictures of Bill O'Coin. Bill showed up for the funeral.
Yep. And
Bill pulled me to the side and wanted to talk. And he says, how much of this book do you have done? And Sean was talking about. And I go, well, I have his interviews, and I have quite a bit of it done, but it's in no way, shape, or form yet ready to be released. So Bill tells me, you can't release that book. And I go, I can release that book. I said, I've got all of, me and Sean, I have the documents, and it's been notarized and everything, and all the paperwork. And he goes, well, I'm telling you now, unless you want to hear from, people even higher up than me, don't publish that book. And that's it. I kind of took it with a grain of salt. Me and Roy went to the after event there, and we sat down with Lydia. Chris was there. There were some other people. I can't remember who they were talking, but we got to sit down with, I think it was Bill's brother and his niece, and there was other family members there. And the point is that I wanted to sit, and I said, so you guys are the leftover estate, basically. I mean, Sean didn't have much of anything. Mm-hmm. He didn't have it. And they said, yeah. And I said, well, I want your permission then to publish this book, because that's what he wanted. I said, I don't know that it's going to make any money. I don't even know what it's going to do, because Sean kept all that to himself. He was going to take this book and run with it. And he was going to go and promote the crap out of it. Mm-hmm. He thought it was going to be the biggest thing since sliced bread. And they said, yep, we go ahead and do it. So we signed some papers. And so I had approval from whoever was left over from him. Mm-hmm. And I had, so it took me some time to continue to put the book together. And a lot of people go, why did it stop? We wanted it to keep going. I go, because that's as far as Sean coherently discussed his life. And he thought that anything after Kiss really didn't mean anything because he figured he hit the peak. He hit the top. He was producing albums and he was writing for the greatest band. And if you read the book, he makes claims that, he was part of, you wanted the best, you got the best, and all of this stuff, even to their look, how they, got their look and everything. And so I guess when you feel like you've hit that pinnacle of success, he felt like it all got kicked out from underneath him and he had nowhere else to go. Why talk about the rest of my life? I'm a bum. Look at me. I don't have anything. And it was sad. But so I put the book together and it got released. And as soon as it got released, I was getting phone calls from Villicon. And Villicon was telling me he was going to sue me and that he, what I finally got to the point was they were going to bring him back into the fold. Kiss was supposedly bringing him back into the fold. At the time, this might have been another one of their comebacks or, another one of their tours. But part of the deal, I guess, was making sure that Sean's book never got published, but it already had been published. Mm-hmm. But, so I got an attorney and I talked to my attorneys and they read the book and they said, there's nothing in here that's defamatory because the way it's written from the guy's point of view. It's from Sean. It's Sean's direct words. He didn't say anybody killed anybody. He didn't say this. He brings things to light that give the Kiss fans something to think about, especially with the whole Marks thing and everything else. And it tells from the beginning the fascinating story of where he came from. How did this kid get to where he was at? And he kind of slept his way there, but he was there, and there was a brilliance about him in his songwriting and the way he was able to produce it and the way he could put a show together to give it that pizzazz, kind of like how he walked into my house and he was just interior decorating or asking me, you do this? Did you do that? And so there was a lot going on there. And I think, Bill died, so he died off. I ended up running into Gene Simmons at another one of these conventions. He knew who I was, didn't say a thing about Hellbox. He wanted to know because I was behind a science fiction graphic novel series. And he walks, he had all his, his whole entourage was around him. And he stops at the booth where we were promoting this book. And he looks at me and he goes, how much is this book making? And I go, this book? As in the comic books. And he goes, yeah. And I said, making quite a bit. And he goes, and you're trying to pitch this as a film? I said, yeah. And he goes, your people need to get with my people. We need to see, maybe I would buy this. And then we just continued to walk on. And that was Gene Simmons. So it was really crazy. But anyway, Hellbox, it had a decent amount of sales. It peaked. It was selling really fast as soon as it came out. And then, over the years, it just kind of dipped and curved. And, you find some things online where people had written reviews for it. But it peaked again a couple years later when I got a call from, I want to say they were called 21st Century Media, but and they weren't the first ones. There was a couple of studios that contacted me and they thought about, they would say, how could we turn this into a screenplay? So I started to write a screenplay based on the book Hellbox. It's in various forms and shapes. The one thing that always collapsed the deal is the fact that they all wanted rights to Kiss's songs to make the movie. And I told them, that's not me. I said, I'm in comic books. I wrote that book. I said, you're coming to the wrong guy. Well, then there's no deal. If we can't do that, I go, well, then I guess there's no deal because this is this man's story. And this started right around the time, what was that Mark Wahlberg movie that came out? It was Rockstar.
Rockstar, yep.
Yeah. Which story essentially of Rob Halford, Judas Priest.
Judas Priest.
Mm-hmm.
Changed everything up, and they used a soundtrack from the 80s. There wasn't any Judas Priest music featured in that. And I think that's where the interest in Hellbox came, because they're like, this is cool. Could we do this? So as I started to write the screenplay, when it came to the points where I started writing about Kiss, you never saw them. You would see the back of them or something. And I told them that you'd have to, I said, first of all, you're never going to get the rights to Kiss music to make this story since they wrote them out. I said, you could make a fictional band up or something, or you could just infer that they're there, but you would never be able to do this, this, or this. And I was just telling them the way it was, you know, and I said, you could talk to my attorneys and you could do all that stuff too, but it's not, I'm not the guy. I can't say anything about it. All I have is the book. Yeah. And actually I wrote a really clever ending, if it ever makes it to the screen, how I could end this and keep it kind of in that world of ending the 70s with Sean and another a big player. But that's kind of the story in a nutshell. You know, talking to the guy was fascinating. It was really a roller coaster going back into the 70s and just learning about all these things. Now, a lot of the stuff that Sean talked about, a lot of Kiss fans already know. If anything, this book delved into a little seedier side. You know, he makes some accusations in the book that, you know, it gives food for thought. It's something to think about, you know, with Casablanca Records and everything. But again, you know, I always tell people I totally believe Sean, and I emphatically believe everything that he told me. And that's what I claim. I say this book is his story, and I believe it myself. But it's open for anybody else to believe. And again, when we're talking about Kiss they're a great band, but they're almost comedic in and of themselves. You know, they're a parody of themselves, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't take away the love that I have for the band. Even to the side, I still love the band for whatever problems that people have with them or that they have with each other. But let's face it, you know, Gene and Paul have both been on TV and they've said it themselves. They will milk Kiss for whatever they can, you know. I mean, I have Kiss bubblegum cards. I have all the stuff that I collected. And to this day, they're still putting out stuff. I mean, you could be buried in a Kiss coffin if you want, with a Kiss credit card if you want. So,
and you're saying this on a Kiss podcast.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes, I love Kiss, but you got to admit, I mean, some of it's funny. I mean, when you got to think of the age of, you know, how old they are, which I give props to them that they can still get on stage and do that. But what's genius about it is that they can put the makeup on, and it takes away how old they really are. In my opinion, if I was Gene and Paul, I would keep Kiss going even in my elderly years, because you could technically get a Sebastian Bach when he was young or something. You could get these guys, put them in makeup, and have a young Kiss now, because the actual characters that Kiss embody could continue to live on with different things.
That could be a completely separate episode. Maybe we'll have you on again for that. But let's back up, Zeus. If you want to unpack everything that Brian just said and kind of fire away with some questions.
Yeah, there's a lot there, and so
yeah.
Let's start with, let me take a step back. Let's start with the book. I will tell you right now, I didn't share anything with Tom. We have a thing that me and him joke about when we review something and we do anything. We always say, save it. And you heard us do a little of that before. Like, let's save it till we get live, because I liked it to be a little spontaneous so the people that are listening can kind of hear us go. And it's not, we don't believe in the stage shit and all that other crap. So what we're saying, I'll tell you right now, when I found this book a while back, we had done a Kiss episode where we said top 5 overrated things about Kiss, top 5 underrated things about Kiss. And you remember, and I had one of my things, I think it was number 1 or number 2, I had Sean Delaney. I said that his role in Kiss is so underrated. And that is before I had your book. And I, just by watching even some of his YouTube clips, you can find him in those convention clips where he discusses, I did the book, I did the dancing, the choreography, the look. I went to the S&M stores and got him that look. I did their hair. I told him to move like this. I got Gene the Blood. I had him do this. I helped him with the songs. I helped him with the theatrics, the bombs, and all that stuff. I was the tour manager. I drove him to the shows. You're like, holy shit. I didn't realize he did so much of this stuff. And some of the great songs of Kiss, he wrote some of them. And then he produced Gene's album. So I had known of all this. And then, you know what? His story kind of vanishes after the 70s. And so I thought that his role was very underrated. By doing that, I just Googled him a little more, besides Wikipedia and stuff. And I found your book. And I was like, I remember telling Tom, I was like, do you know that there's a book out there on him? I had no idea. I ordered it, got it. I'm not sure if I was Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, got it. Real quickly, I'll tell you. The book is about 117, 18 pages. It is pages. It is a easy read. It is a fun read. You go through it quickly. There's a bunch of Kiss nuggets in there. Obviously, we're not going to tell you everything. We want you to go buy the book, right? But there's a lot of stuff in there that, us running a Kiss podcast, we found new and interesting. There's a lot of stuff in the beginning, personal shit that kind of, he lets us in on a world that I don't know, I didn't know existed. And as you were saying, when you first walk in and meet him and he's like, oh, you're gay, aren't you? And that whole world, like the 60s and the 70s and his life in the army, the boyfriend that abused him and all this other stuff. And then how he met Villicon. I'm like, this stuff goes on. This is a world that none of us are familiar with. And it opened our eyes for us to, from being so naive to think this shit isn't going on. And it was fascinating. But then you quickly get into the story about how he meets Kiss, through Villicon and what he puts his energy in and the beginning stages of Kiss and his impact. It's awesome. And then there's the other aspect of it that I thought was the biggest, takeaway for me was that part about the money in the end where the office and the receptionist there at Bill's office, the one that, had an overdose but never did drugs when everybody else in the office did drugs, and then somebody else comes in and he doesn't recognize this woman and he puts it together years later on and then he's like, that's where I recognize her. And if I only knew that, what would have happened differently with my life, Kiss's life, Villicon's life if I picked up on this? It's kind of like an unsolved mystery that happens at the end, and you're like, holy shit. So I will tell you, this is one of the best Kiss books I've read. It's a light, easy, fun read. Diehard Kiss fans should get it, even if you're not a diehard Kiss fan. But the diehards, the ones that take their time to listen to us, go get it. You're going to love it. And we don't do thumbs up or any shit like that, but I love the book, Brian. I thought it was well written. A character that in Kiss's world that I always thought positive of. I come away with thinking positive of him. The only thing I would think is that I feel bad for him because it seemed like there was a lot of unresolved anger at the end. And even to the point where you're telling us, here's a man that is like, oh, Kiss is going to not like this. And even in his YouTube clips where he's talking about, oh, this is their worst nightmare. He still kisses their ass. He still loves them. He still will protect them. He still wants to wear a Kiss t-shirt in his coffin. He's got Kiss music playing, but he just wanted the recognition. And I think that he felt like if they just said, yeah. And I know later on, there was some kind words said later on where they've kind of admitted his role, but they don't talk about it much. But if they're pinpointed on it, I think they feel guilty. There are other people that say, I've heard Lydia Chris say, absolutely he's the fifth Kiss member. Absolutely. More so than Villicon with Sean. And then I've heard others, that say without him, there wouldn't be a Kiss without Sean. So it has gotten better over the years. But this book, I will tell you, I'm so glad that I found it and that we were able to get you on to talk a little bit more about it. But I loved it, and I just kind of want to hear what Tom's going to say about it.
Yeah. So again, Brian, that story, the story was just amazing because, like Zeus said, diehard Kiss fans, people that are listening to our show, people that read the Kiss books and listen to, the music, they know who Sean Delaney is. And like Zeus said, and like you said, what a troubled life and a troubled man that he was, a talented visionary man. And you wish that, the work that you did with this book is stunning. And the way that you, like what you said, that you wrote the book as if Sean wrote it, instead of you saying, and then Sean told me this, and then Sean said this. It's, you don't know, it's like as he's writing and he's putting the book together. And you wonder if Sean, because there's Kiss books out there about everything, about, every era, some, member specific books. But you wish the story that Sean has to tell. This is such a great book. And you wonder if Sean was a little bit more, I hate to use the word stable because it almost sounds insulting, but you wonder if he was a little bit more stable, if he could have put a book together that could have been maybe 2 or 3 times bigger than this, because he has so much to tell because he was involved so much. And this book, like Zeus said, reading it, we've read every Kiss book that there's ever been invented, ever published. We've read them all, probably more than once. And for a book that's only 117 pages long, I learned more things in this book. And that's just because it was from Sean Delaney. And, I thank you for taking this project on and giving us this book. And that's why we wanted you on, to let people know that this book exists and that you have to read it. And there's things in here that you're just going to be like, I can't believe this. Why does no one else know about this? And I'll finish with just a quick question, and then you can kind of talk about it. When you say that people like Villicon and other people wanted this book squashed, it kind of leads me to believe what you said. I believe Sean.
I think people wanted it squashed because, again, even if you go through all of history and now, you would think that, okay, the guys are so old now, who cares? Everybody's got money and everything. But there's a lot of fragile egos that still are there. And they just, I don't know what it is. And I guess Sean couldn't understand it either. And that's why I wrote it from his point of view, because when I interviewed him and you hear his voice, he was a broken man. They broke him. And it tells of his youth. He didn't go to any traditional college. He didn't know, what he had was a born ability, to keep time, to write, to, there's some people out there that are like that. Unfortunately, he got passed over, and he was a tragic figure that they was able to throw away. And I don't think he even believed that they would do that to him. But it's like once they throw you out of the ivory tower and you've got no paperwork, almost like you have no ID to prove who you are, prove who these stories were, there was no one going to be able to listen to him. But when he was at the top, I mean, if you look at there was a book, and then there was a biopic on Liberace. Did you see that? It had Michael Douglas. And,
yes. Yes.
Yeah. Same thing. You get some of these guys that got on the inside with these famous people. They didn't really have, it was like being a spouse or something. They were just there. The money was there. They're going to the parties. They're hobnobbing. But something came down where they kicked Sean out of the fold. And once he was out of the fold, he was out of the fold. And I try to put myself in his shoes, and it must have been tough to live with. I mean, seriously, to be able to walk around and say, yep, I'm the one that made Kiss. I'm the one that dressed. And no one's going to believe you, because Kiss saturated pop culture with who they were and who they are. And there's no room to talk about the little guy, especially when the little guy was so far from being in the limelight anymore. But, his name appears on albums. There was pictures out there. But as time went by, he just slowly got erased. But like you said, there has been some nice things said now that he's gone. But it's like it's too late. The guy left a mark on the world that, unfortunately, he never got to. I mean, we all do things, and we want to feel that little good inside that, oh yeah, I was behind that. He never got that. And
and like we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but Zeus and I, we love the band. Obviously, we wouldn't be doing a podcast. We've been following the band since we were little kids. We love the band. But one thing that we're proud of with our show is that we're not afraid to call out the band when they do things that are silly or when they do things that deserve criticism. And one thing that we've talked about is sometimes the way that the band can treat people in the KISS family tree, whether it be former members or former managers or anybody, and reading this book and hearing what you're saying your experiences were with Sean and the way that the band kind of kicked him to the curb, I'll be honest with you, it's disappointing, because you don't want to believe that somebody as important to the band as Sean Delaney would be treated that way. And it's I know it's business, it's life. But that is a sad and tragic aspect to Sean's life. And I'm sure, obviously, in the book and what your experiences with him, that weighed on him. And what human being would not have that weigh on them?
My heart went out to him. When I met him, when Roy introduced me to him, it was something so compelling about it. And that's what I tried to bring to the book, because everybody knows the stories. They saw the sad old man sitting there at the convention, and he tells the story. He doesn't tell where he came from. He doesn't talk about these truck stops. He doesn't talk about being in the military and the instrument that he played and what his take on all that was. So I thought it was really interesting to build up to that and then get into the KISS stuff, because that's what he had to talk about. And so a little bit of irony, every couple of years I hear from somebody about this book, like I heard from you guys. And last year I heard from a woman named Deborah Suprick, and she's still alive. I want to say she might be in her 70s, but she called me, and I can't remember exactly how she found the book, but she found the book too. And she says, "Do you know who I am?" I said, "I really don't." And I looked her up, and she's a music producer. She ended up working in the industry. She says, Fran, who in the book you guys read about,
yeah,
yep,
goes, Fran used to babysit me, and all of a sudden she was on one day, and nobody knew what happened to her. And somehow I came across this book, and she goes, and I read this book, and she goes, I cried. I had tears in my eyes. You're the only person I can talk to about this. She goes, and I talked to her for about 2 hours about Sean and everything, because there was just a little nugget in this book that gave her a little bit of closure, and it had nothing to do with KISS.
Wow.
To what I tell people is that this story it's not just about KISS. This is about somebody who worked in the music business. He was surrounded by the things that happened with KISS. He actually influenced KISS, but this is the story of this happens to a lot of people, and I'm sure it happened to a lot of people. And, we live in a different world now. I wonder what Sean would have thought of the world now. I don't even know if he would have lived that long, because, he had a lot of problems. He had a lot of health issues, but that was a guy that was beat down. And when they came to me, that's the reason the book got done too, because he brought this to a lot of people, and everybody wanted an upfront fee as an author to do it. And I was a fan of KISS first and foremost. And I said, man, I would love to do this. And that's the same with Roy. Roy knew who he was because he knew his name off the back of albums. And he says, yeah, I'll help you. I'll give you an album cover for some new band. And that's why we clicked with him, because we did it and we didn't ask for anything in return. I think all we said was, because of course, he was telling me he had these ins. He was going to get on the David Letterman show. And I said, okay, Sean, just make sure you don't do to us what KISS did to you. If this happens, I just want some credit, and that's what he agreed to. And it's just unfortunate that he died and he didn't get to see the book published, because I can only imagine what he would have done with the book, because he was totally willing to be that guy that would have went out there. He would have fought. He would have gotten Gene's face. He would have gotten Bill's face and everything. And that's why I wish that would have happened, because it's his story, and that was his story to do that with. Just like it's to me, it's still his story, belongs to his estate. I hope that it can go somewhere someday, because I think this would make a great telepic film, you know, whether they change the person around or whatever, but it would be great for people to know. Who knows? Maybe when we're all gone and Kiss is all gone, this person's story will be told and they'll be able to do justice based on the book. But he really was a fascinating guy.
Yeah.
He was really fascinating.
So something for that I wanted to bring up, and I'm going to be honest with you. I don't see why Kiss would be so offended by this book. There's no insults to them. The only time I think they really came across bad was that Peter acted at one point kind of snobby. At one point got a little bit too big and talked to Sean like he was the help. And there's a story in there and what he does to him. And that's a great part. But other than that, even Bill, I mean, I get it if he was closeted and he's like, I don't want this book to come out because it's talking about my sex life. But Bill doesn't come across as a bad guy. Now, later on, Paul and Gene, they all kind of throw Bill under the bus with, unfortunately, they, talk about losing basically a coin management, Bill and Sean's company, because of Bill's drug abuse and things like that. That's not even in this book. There's no real talk about Bill being out of control, drug abuse, problems that Paul and Gene brought up about Bill. So even him, I'm like, he doesn't even come across bad. What I think the issue of the book is, and one of the parts I want to bring up, and I want to be a devil's advocate here, and that is, it's the Glickman-Marx duo that comes across as bad. Now, you can see it. I think they're the villains in this book. And in addition to that, it kind of goes to the point that when did the shit hit the fan? In the 80s? So late 70s and 80s and all that stuff. And then they found out that Paul always tells a story. I woke up one day and I found out I was broke. They screwed up my investment, all that other stuff. Sean has another interesting part to talk about the financing stuff. It's in the book. People buy it. You'll find it fascinating. But the part that I think is, I believe that it looks like at that point in time, it's the 80s. We all know where Kiss was in the 80s. Paul and Gene are fending for themselves. They're not thinking of reunion Kiss in 96 and the biggest tour of the year and they're back up on top again. They're struggling to survive. Looking at each other, what wig should I wear? What costume should I wear to keep up with Bon Jovi and Def Leppard? They got their own problems. They don't want to be hearing about Sean and Bill and a coin management and Glickman, Marx, and all these people that they supposedly felt trusted. They don't know who really fucked them over, but they did get fucked over. And I think you know where Paul and Gene are with drugs and stuff. And Sean always had the drug stuff right in front of them, but he did have their back. I think they just washed their hands. I think they just said, that's it. We're done. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want any drama. Let's get rid of all of them and move on. And we all know that eventually Paul and Gene get new management, and whether, what happened with Glickman Marx, all that stuff. I think they washed their hands because I've never heard them, at least publicly, or seen much of them shitting on Sean. I've heard Paul and Gene say that Bill was whacked out on drugs, especially Paul, and that they had to remove because he knows how the fans think of Bill Aucoin. So he has to make it seem a lot worse probably than, this guy that did all this stuff and paid for everything on his American Express cards through the lean times to get Kiss where they are. At the end, we just told him to fuck off. And same thing with Sean. I think they have to have this image like, no. We were still trying to keep Kiss alive. These people had drugs. Ace did. Peter did. Sean was messed up. That the management stole our money. I want to be clean of this. So I feel like, at least I'm thinking of Gene and Paul. They've no reason to say anything. Sean isn't saying anything like, Paul didn't know how to sing a note until I showed him how to sing. Gene didn't have any talent until I told him you need to do. It wasn't that way. This book is pretty clear that he kind of brought this stuff to them and worked with the band and brought the best out of the band. But Sean wasn't being a jerk about this and saying, oh yeah, there's no Kiss without me. He just wants credit. And I don't know why they would have a hard time about this book. I don't know why Bill would have a hard time about this book. I think there's two people, one of them is now since passed, would have a hard time about this book. And they're the villains of this story. But that's how I see it.
I think one of the things that I got from Sean was the fact that I think he had a revenge thing against Bill as well, because he felt Bill really shut him out, and that Bill really, let's face it. I think there was a lot of that. Like you said, Kiss eventually they wanted to wash their hands of everything. I think Bill wanted to wash his hands of Sean. It was a trickle down effect, and I honestly, Sean, he wasn't so bitter with Kiss as he was with the fact that he couldn't get through to anybody so that he could be recognized. And that's because, like you said, Kiss was moving on. They had to move on. They washed their hands of it. And here these guys were, kind of fending for themselves, Bill Coyne flapping around. I think that Sean was in touch with Bill a lot as the book was being written. So sometimes I don't know if Bill was trying to get a backdoor back into Kiss and was purposefully trying to shut it down through Sean because he didn't want to look bad, because he wanted back in the good graces. And by letting Sean write a book, and again, most Kiss fans, these are all stories. These are all fabled stories that everybody knows a little bit about this stuff already. But I guess Sean just wanted to have his say, more so than just having his say at a convention. He wanted it to be in fine print. I think he wanted to be interviewed by somebody bigger than life. I think, he wanted to go back in the day. He wanted to be interviewed by Tom Snyder. He wanted to be interviewed by Dick Cavett. He wanted to be interviewed by David Letterman. And who knows nowadays? Is he going to be on Kelly Clarkson's show or whatever? Ellen DeGeneres. Yeah. He wasn't asking for much. I don't think Sean didn't care about the wealth. He didn't want to be rich. He wanted to be noticed for what he did in music history. He wanted to be credited for that. And of course, that would have given him more credibility in the industry, so he could have gotten work. He never had to leave the industry. He'd be producing today, for some genre of music, for some artist somewhere. And he was still trying to do that, but it was much harder not having the credentials that he worked so hard for and undeservingly had pulled out from under him.
Yeah. And that's why I said, as amazing as this book is, and we're so happy that you put it together with Sean, it's a shame that, like what we call, the fifth member of Kiss, one of the most important and relevant and riveting stories is in a book that unfortunately a lot of people don't know exists, which is why, again, we're so happy to have you on here, because we want to get this out and let people know that this unbelievable story, I wish it was bigger, but what we have, that it exists. And my question is, was there ever a time when you were working with Sean that you thought about getting like a bigger publisher or anybody involved to get? Did Sean want that, or did Sean what did Sean want? Did he want, a Simon and Schuster type publisher out there to take his book? Like, did he want that?
That's what he wanted. He wanted to, and we made a deal. I was like, yeah, I will do this for you. He wanted to be the go-getter. He was willing to fly where he needed to fly, do what he needed to do. He just, for some reason, over all the years, couldn't put it together himself.
Yeah.
And he wanted it to be big. He wanted it to be big. He dreamed of having it made as a movie. He dreamed of it. I mean, he wanted so much. And he put a lot of thought into the Hell Box. At one point, he did have something he wanted to call himself. He wanted to call the book The Fifth Kiss. And I think he got some pushback from that, is what he had told me. And so when he started to think of Hellbox, we started to talk about, what do you mean Hellbox? And if you look closely at the cover and you see the snakes, and and the demon horns that he has. He wanted to portray himself as the person that he was a combination of everything that he gave to Kiss, because he claims he taught them how to bring their inner character out. And his hell box was his whole life shoved into this box. And he said that he lived in a living hell because of what he had done. And that sometimes he would wake up and he says, I don't even know that was me. Was I even there? He had a real identity problem that he said he likened back to the time when he was a closeted gay young man. He said in his later years, he felt so boxed, didn't know what to do. And he really thought that putting his story out there would be like unleashing the demon inside of him and really being able to get it out there. And unfortunately, and it ends where it does, because in good conscience, I couldn't write any further because everything else would not be true to the facts that he was giving me. And sometimes when the recording was off and we'd be driving him home or something, he'd start talking again, and he was talking about more current things and what his likes and his passions were, but it wasn't on the record. And, and that's the one thing I didn't want to make as a hearsay book. This is from him. And anybody that's interested in his perspective, it's a really interesting perspective. It's like sitting down. I wanted to give everybody else that same feeling of, if you sat down with this man and talked to him, this is the story he's going to tell you in its most concise form, but still as particular and as it can be with details. It's got its own intricacy there, and I'm really proud of it. And, getting able to talk to you guys has really brought it back to the forefront again, because it's one of the projects that, it never goes away. It's out there. And I just wish Sean was able to share that, because in the end, he did get a book out there. There is something that if people could just find it, it's all him.
Yeah. Yeah. The one question I wanted to ask you too is, did you guys ever get to the point where he was maybe discussing each member individually, talking about, let me tell you about Paul. I think he's this and this, that. Let me tell you about Gene or Peter or Ace, or anything specifically about a certain album that he was working on. I like this song. I hate this song. Or this album, I think they went into it all wrong. And so-and-so was shit-faced. And I got this guy. And things like that.
He did say that, and that's why I bring it up, When You Wish Upon a Star. He said that Gene was adamant about putting that on the album. And it had to do with his own childhood, and he just wanted it on there. Sean, he said he was asked about it, and he said, no, don't put that on there. But Gene really wanted to put it on there. He did say emphatically that they're the most narcissistic bunch of people he'd ever met in his life. And at the time he said, but I was a narcissist too at the time. He goes, and that's why I clicked with them. He said, Bill had the vision or had the money to keep this boat afloat. And he goes, and I had the vision, and he just dumped these guys into my lap. And I just kind of took them and molded them. And he said that they couldn't see. And then he said they couldn't see what he saw. And they think, he goes, maybe they thought it was the drugs, and maybe it was the drugs talking through me. But he goes, I just knew that they had to come up with, their personality inside. So these characters that you see in Kiss, it's something that Sean claims he pushed and pushed and pushed to have them draw these characters out from that. And I think later, when you see later on, when they had to get new band members and they tried to create new characters, it didn't quite work.
Yeah.
And I think that's another testament to what Sean must have done, what he must have contributed to them thinking about their own characters, because when it came time to replace characters, it never clicked the way it originally did. And so in the end, what we have now is two people that for the past decade, maybe two, that have been playing the same characters of that Ace played and Peter played. It's just really, I don't know. It's one of the most fascinating real life stories. If there's interplanetary beings out there monitoring us and they were to look at the band Kiss, and they'd wonder, like, what is that all about? And seeing, multitudes worshiping them in stadiums. And you got to think, it's not just the band, it's the people that went behind it and kind of created that. Although they did do a lot of their creation, it's just one man, this guy that seamlessly came out of nowhere who really inspired them.
One last question for me before we let you go, and we appreciate the time that you've given us so far. We really do. I know that one thing that Sean and myself share, as much as I love them, I listen to them frequently, but Sean was not a big fan of the band doing the solo albums. And the same reason, again, I love the music. I love the album covers. I love everything about that whole era. But Sean, his fear was kind of founded because he knew that it was pretty much going to tear the band apart. And it eventually did. Whether or not the band would have been torn apart anyways, who knows? But can you just give a little bit of a little bit about that, about what he said about that? Because it's a little bit in the book, and we've read about it in some other books. But hearing it from Sean, I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall. Did he say anything to the band, and what did he say to the members, or Bill Coyne, or you, specifically?
I remember he told me that when he would talk to Bill just kind of, would wash himself from it, because at that point, it's like, money's coming in, let the guys do what they want to do. And here's Sean, he kind of felt like he was being slapped in the face. I remember him specifically, he goes back to the story of the abusive relationship that he had in the military, and he felt he was being abusively told that, your opinion doesn't matter, you need to stay out of this, even though he really felt like, man, I feel like I not created them, but I felt so involved in bringing them to where they're at, and I've really got to say that this is a bad mistake. And he started to bring up, he was still well versed in music and stuff. He was talking about Beyonce and Destiny's Child. He was talking about bands that he said, once they start going and doing their solo things, he says they never come back and they're never the same, because one will always rise above the rest and there will be an animosity. And he felt very bitterly, although he says in the same breath, he would say how honored he was that he was asked to produce, when he still didn't agree with the whole thing. And he disliked that his opinion wasn't really counted for. And I think at that time is when it really started to go, where he felt like, I'm just a kind of a dismissive voice, because Bill's making all the business decisions, and he's not putting, nobody was thinking about the creative side. Even the band members themselves. I mean, they wanted to be creative by doing their own albums, but even then, true to the way all of them were, it was more about, wouldn't it be fantastic to see myself on an album and myself singing these songs? And they were all getting that bigger head. And it really bothered Sean. And of course, in hindsight, he was right. Again, another testament to what he saw that nobody else was looking at that time.
Yep. Yeah. I think the part of this, and I'll end with this, is I think you're right in the sense that the other part to this is, I think he even says it in the book at some point, these guys never were really friends with each other. This isn't a band that grew up together, played for 5 years, were buddies and went through something together. They kind of tried to become successful as a band, but they're really individuals. And the second they hit it big, I'm the star child. Well, I'm the demon. And I write them, well, I got the biggest hit. Well, I just want to play rock and roll. They all had separate identities inside the band as well. So the second they could separate themselves, They were fine with that. There was no camaraderie, and I think Sean probably picked up on that and it's like, these guys are going to split. This isn't the Jackson 5, like a family or something else, or a band that's come up together and is like, these guys are blood brothers. These guys were never that close. They still aren't. But the one point I wanted to get to, the last question I wanted to ask you is, was there something, a story or something interesting that you wish you could put in the book that you and Sean talked about, but because of your code of ethics that you said this needs to be from the tape? I need to be from interviews and it needs to be Sean's voice. The stories that Sean's told you about Kiss, Gene, Paul, Bill, anything that you're like, you can tell us now on the podcast because it's not in the book and it's not going against Sean's code. But is there something in there that's interesting that you can tell us from Sean that we would love to hear about?
He talked
to me, put in the book.
He talked to me about Elvis Presley.
Oh, there you go.
And he talked to me about his thoughts on whether Elvis was really dead or not.
Oh, Jesus.
He told me something that stuck with me. And I actually, as I started to pen the screenplay version, that's kind of how I would like to end the screenplay. Sean, as a destitute, he's sitting in a diner, smoking his cigarettes, telling his stories, and an old Cadillac with tinted windows, early 80s, pulls up. Guy gets out, gray hair, sits down, starts to tell the same kind of stories that he's telling to him. When he leaves, we realize it's inferred that that was probably Elvis Presley. And he was Sean Delaney. And Sean was fascinated by this. And actually, he talked about this a lot. He would bring up the whole Elvis thing. Yeah. And to this day, it makes me wonder. And I got to tell you, as I attended the funeral, when I looked at him for the last time in his open casket, I thought about that. I thought, if I didn't see you there dead now, I would think that maybe this was a last attempt to try to facilitate or start a legend or a legacy about yourself to get people talking, because that's what he really wanted to do. That's what he really wanted.
Wow.
That's so fascinating, huh?
That's unbelievable. Wow. Brian, this has been unbelievable. Obviously, we could talk to you all night because the book and Sean Delaney in general is just, it's fascinating stuff. And we thank you so much for taking the time. And we hope that we can bring this book, shine light on it to our listeners and fans and get it out there and let people know what they're missing out on. And, you know, again, we thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Brian,
you for having me.
Tell us some of your other projects before we let you go. What are you working on? Something you want to bring attention. In addition, please let people know where they can find you, your work, and especially this book. But tell us what you've been up to and what you're doing these days.
Something that, I'm writing for some commercials right now. But one of the things that I was involved with, and this was a couple years back too, I got into the whole resurgence of the Dallas, the old TV show Dallas.
Yeah.
And wow. I actually helped get that thing rolling before they remade it again as a TV series for TNT.
Yeah.
What I had done is I was able to sit with the cast and I came up with a comic book version. That might still be out there. You can probably look it up online, type in a Dallas comic book. I think it's free out there. People can actually see a take on the Ewings that happened, 10 years maybe after the original series ended. And you could see what the take was on the J.R. Ewing and Bobby thing. Of course, since J.R. had really passed in real life and the new TV series kind of failed after 3 seasons. But if people are interested in that, they can go online and check it out by typing like Dallas comic book, and they should be able to see. It's really cool. They have it flip pages, and it's free. Anybody can go to it. Wow. The one thing that I've been behind for probably 2 decades now, and that's the graphic novel series, the Villicon Chronicles. Yep. That's Villikon Chronicles. And it's a graphic novel series that ran in the early 2000s. and still gets a lot of steam to this day. I can't begin to tell you the stories behind that and trying to get it picked up as a motion picture franchise. But with so many streamers nowadays, you're not stuck with just a studio or this studio. You've got all CBS All Access and Hulu and Netflix, and they're all out there. So, gone are the days when you were just segmented to a small select thing, which is why I say Hellbox has a good chance. If it was so out there would be some producers somewhere that would be willing to take the chance and find a way to tell Sean's story in a different medium. So let's hope that happens. But you can look for Villicon Chronicles. That's out there, and all the stuff you can see it online. You just type my name, type the projects, and they'll pop up.
And Hellbox is available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
Also, I think they could get it at Ex Libris. That's XLIBRIS. They were the original ones that had published it. But people they can pick it up from Amazon, from Barnes and Noble. And I know over the years it's gone from just being print in paperback or hardback. They can also get it as a Nook book or whatever. It's a discounted price. People just like to read that on their Kindles and stuff. So it's another way that they can get it.
Awesome. The name of the book is Sean Delaney's Hellbox. And again, we thank Brian Canard for joining us. Brian, this has been fascinating. Good luck to you and all your future projects, and please stay in touch with Shout It Out Loudcast, and would love to have you back on and talk more Kiss. Thank you again so much.
I will. Look forward to it.
Brian, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. Guys, go out and get this book. Thank you.
Take care, Brian.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, we're back.
Yes, Kramer, and we're back.
So that was Brian Canard. What a great, thoughtful, informative, passionate interview with Brian. His story is amazing. A story that we didn't know. Even when Zeus and I were talking about having this interview with Brian, we're like, we don't know a lot about Brian's background. Like, what was his role with Sean? And when he unleashed that story, that background, just an amazing and informative and tragic story about Sean. And I'm just so glad that Brian came on here to talk about the background of his relationship with him.
Yeah, it was funny because we were like, what if we put him on the show and he just simply says, I don't like Kiss. I don't even know anything about him. I was just his neighbor, and he asked me to write this. I just wrote it in. I just took his words and wrote it. And did you know Sean? No.
Yeah, that's
okay,
what we were.
Thanks. We'll see you next week.
That's what we were afraid of, because we don't know anything about Brian.
And couldn't have been nicer. Such a great guy. Very informative. Obviously got to know Sean. And we have a couple things probably in the works with him coming down the pipe that we'll put on the show a little bit later that he kind of hinted at. But I found it so fascinating hearing about this stuff. And, the way he comes across in this book is exactly how, when Sean described meeting him for the first time, walking in his house, saying, oh, that picture, this and that. Hey, you're gay, aren't you? And Sean's like, what? And then Brian's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Oh, yeah, you are. Like, just completely, confident in himself, a character, eccentric guy. And he couldn't do anything unless he got to smoke his cigarettes. So they're in 1,000 degrees, sweating in puddles, just because that's the way he had to do it. I can totally picture it. The book itself, we try not to give the big stories and the big reveals of what's in the book to you guys. There's stuff in there that you read that you're going to be like, oh, shit, I didn't know that. It's fascinating. The big reveal for me, I would say, is there's a story in there that Sean talks about, and it's has to do with the finances part and how he got kind of cut out, and how Bill got cut out, and Glickman and Marks and the receptionist lady there named Fran and her suspicious death and all this other crap. And then how, we know the story later on where even Paul in his book and everyone else is like, what do you mean I'm broke? And how did that come to be? And from that transfer of the coin management of KISS to all of a sudden them then getting their own business managers of Glickman Marx, right? And that group then changing the dynamic of basically Bill and Sean's relationship with KISS, how it changed KISS. I mean, Sean was basically there to live with them, monitor them, be like almost like a rock and roll director, as he once said in the book. No, I want these costumes. Nope, I don't want this in there. Nope, you need to move like this. Nope, I think you shouldn't do this. No, I need you to add this into the song. Like stuff that he was very creative, and he wasn't looking for credit as far as hey, you guys need to be putting this in the album. I need my cut. He was just looking for validation and appreciation from the band. And sadly, I don't think he got what he wanted from them. I think it more or less has to do because, as I said to Brian, that unfortunately, I think the band got to the point where by late 70s, early 80s, they're like, we got our own fucking problems. Everybody else is on drugs. The only two people that are not on drugs are the two driving forces in this band, Gene and Paul. So fuck everybody. We're looking out for ourselves. And I think that's what happened, and Sean got caught up in that.
Yeah, it's like we've said before, it's a tragic story because of the value that Sean had to the band. The beginning of the book is very, very, it's Sean's background, his upbringing, his life before KISS, in KISS, after KISS. And like Zeus said, we don't want to give too many stories away, but I'll tell you right now, there's a couple chapters in there, specifically the one on KISS Alive, that will raise some eyebrows for sure in terms of KISS, the KISS fandom. But then it evolves into almost like a true crime story near the end. And it's very sad. And the tragic passing, like Brian talked about, the tragic passing of Sean just shocked everybody because there was a lot more that I think Sean wanted to be able to tell. And unfortunately, that wasn't there. So this is one of the reasons why the book is the size that it is. But I think Sean was very concise in what he wanted to put into this book. And I think that's why there's a lot of information for a small book, and it's worth every word.
Yeah, this book came out in 2004.
Yep.
16 years ago. So reading this book today, it's still kind of like, what the fuck? But 16 years ago, like gay themes and rock and roll and all that stuff, I can see why it was a little bit shunned, and maybe Bill and all them were like, hey, I don't want you talking about that. There's like some gruesome shit in here. And I'm not talking about sexuality. I'm just talking about abuse and stuff that, if I read this when I was a lot younger and immature, I'd be like, holy fuck, this is weird. As a grown man now and an adult, I can appreciate for what it is. And you look at it and you're like, holy shit, this guy went through a lot. And he talks about a side of America growing up that I didn't know existed. There's this whole, because I'm not a gay man, and there's this whole side of like almost like a secret society that I like, oh, that doesn't happen. But Sean is blunt and tells you exactly what it is. Especially when he goes into the military and he thinks like he needs to get out of this. He's trying to cure his gayness, basically. And if anything, it made it worse for him in the sense that it was just as bad there. And, something that you wouldn't expect something, historically to be accurate, especially during that time period. But he opened my eyes to a lot of what was going on in America and the underground of that lifestyle, and then going to New York and the underbelly of New York City in the late 60s and early 70s. I feel like it was a fucking Serpico or movie, or Mean Streets, a Scorsese movie reading this. Really?
Yeah, Sean was brutally honest in this book, and like Brian hinted at that, there's no flies on Sean. What you saw and what you heard is what you got from him. And that book, this book talks about that. And like Zeus said, some very graphic and really kind of upsetting sections in this book about his the life that he led. I mean, like Zeus and I were reading the book and we'll be texting each other, be like, dude, did you get to chapter so-and-so about this? Like, Jesus Christ. Like, and then it kicks into gear with Kiss, and then it just takes you on that trip, the highs and lows. One of the things that I asked Brian, I wanted more, but unfortunately this is what we got. And I'm so glad that we have at least this, because it's just so brutally honest and right out there. And you guys are going to love every minute of it. It is available on Amazon in paperback. It's available on Barnes & Noble. I think Brian mentions that too, but I can't stress it enough. If you are a Kiss fan, you need this book. No doubt about it.
Yeah, it's like less than $20.
Yep.
Go out and buy it. Read it yourself. I'm telling you, it is well worth it.
And I know you might be saying, oh, dude, I've read all the Kiss books. I've read that. I'm telling you, and I'm not just saying this. We're not getting paid by Brian or by anybody. There are things in this book that I have never read in any other Kiss book, bio or autobiography or anything. Like Zeus said, for less than $20, you got to add it to your collection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And it's you see where he ends up. And then you said to me, you texted me at one point, holy shit, at the end he seemed like a very angry man.
Very.
And I don't think he was asking for much in life, because he got a pretty raw deal. He had a pretty tough life. He had his highs and lows. But what I think he wanted to was not feel that sense of betrayal. And that betrayal that he felt hurt him more than some of the physical abuse that he took from other people and the hurt that he felt physically. And he gave more to Kiss and the band and to make them work than he gave himself when he was the artist trying to make it in the music industry. And I think that's because he felt like they had the talent, they had the stuff, and he wasn't going to let what happened to him as an artist happen to them, because he had a person like himself. He didn't have a person like himself protecting him. Well, he was going to protect Kiss. And it was pretty clear that he did his best and did a great job in the beginning. And his contribution is just underappreciated.
Yeah. One of the things I said too during talking to Brian was, you've heard us, you've listened to our show, you're a Kiss fan, you know that unfortunately Paul and Gene specifically sometimes have a hard time with how they treat former members, former management, former people in the Kiss family tree. And it looks like at the time, maybe Sean was one of those people that maybe wasn't treated the way that he should have been. And it's just too bad for Sean.
So when I think out loud, and we're going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here.
Yeah.
Out loud, the 4 biggest deaths in Kiss, I would say Eric Carr. I would say Mark St. John. I would say Bob Kulick, Sean Delaney. Let me add a 5th, Villicon.
Villicon. Yep.
Let me add a 6th, J.R. Smallings, right? Those 6 that I'm thinking of right off the top of my head. Which of them ended with Kiss, Paul and Gene, showing a very tender, a very emotional send-off, or a very sad or very stoic, just very
emotional.
Yeah, but I'm not sure I can think of the word. Showing their appreciation of this person and their contribution to the band and what they meant to them in and out of the band and as people. Do you get a sense of that at all from any of those 6 people that I've talked about? Have you ever read anything and just been like, wow, that really touched them? His death or loss really affected him. The only time I can think of any death that has affected any one of them, honestly, off the top of my head, is I would say, and it really touched me because it was very tender, was Gene's mom.
Yep.
Now, I don't expect Gene to treat Villicon passing like his mom.
Right.
Okay. I know Paul lost his mom, and I know they didn't have a very good relationship. I know he's got a very good relationship with his father now. He obviously didn't for years, but I don't see anything close to being a tender, kind, emotional homage to anybody of those 6 people that I mentioned passing.
And
Do you
it,
sense any?
no, and that type of behavior carries over into what we talk about a lot on the show. They're very detached. They're very emotionally detached, almost like on a personality disorder level, where they're so calculating and so driven and directed towards their goal that sometimes they can't see that there are people that contribute to that goal, and they can't take their eye off of that. And that's why you see a lot of Paul's behavior. You see the way a lot like Gene is a lot, that they're emotionally detached from a lot of things around them, including the passing or the loss of band members, or like you said, all those people, Villicon, Bob Kulick, etc. To them, it's like, that's very sad, but we have to record track 3 on the next album here. Let's get to business here. It's like there's no, and this is just my view, because I've been a Kiss fan since 1978, 5 years old. I like everybody else out there, I've read every book by them. I followed everything about them. They just don't seem like the kind of guys that, I'm not going to say that they don't care, because that's a strong assertion to say that they don't care, but they don't show it very well, and they seem emotionally detached and cold. They just do.
Yeah, and you're right. So what do you get? Do you get those kind of comments that Paul reserves them for when there are other artists or people that Paul wants to be like, look at me saying these kind words about this artist that just passed away that everybody else is praising, but I want my name to be mentioned in the Twitter condolences for this person. Oh, so-and-so commented on David Bowie. Oh, Paul Stanley also commented, but he won't comment on Bob Kulick's passing. Or what did they do? I think they said that Gene and Paul paid for some of the funeral stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't go.
They didn't go.
Yeah. It just, we don't have time for that. I've got a meeting, and I'm sitting down with the songwriter to write Black Tongue for my new album, Asshole. Like,
I can't wait for that episode. Oh shit, it's coming too, people.
Yeah, it's just, it's frustrating, because deep down, how close Sean was to this band, and how instrumental is. But now this platitude there where they'll say out loud, without Sean Delaney, there'll be no Kiss. I see it now. Why didn't you show it then? I think they were waiting, and they were waiting for the shoe to drop. They weren't sure about what Sean was going to say about them. And now that he's passed and the book is out and they know, that's all he said. Okay, we're okay with him. Yeah. He was instrumental in helping us. If asked, maybe they'll bring it up, but they don't bring it up because they want to say, we need to say that, Villicon and Sean Delaney did this. And
I think another thing,
stuff.
I think another thing too. I think, and this happens with successful people, but I think Paul and Gene also, I think they also have a hard time thanking people too. I think they also have a hard time acknowledging that someone helped them get to where they were.
You're right, because I think what ends up happening is, if I thank you, guess what? Every other ghostwriter or fucking guy on my albums is going to come on and go, yeah, where's my platinum bonus that I got for helping you write the chords to "Lonely is the Hunter" on Animalize?
I think it's a combination of that too, but I think it's also, I don't think they want a lot of people to know that someone else was instrumental in so many key things in Kiss, because then that'll take away the Paul Stanley and the Gene Simmons.
Yeah, but Paul is the one that says, people have this crazy concept of thinking 4 members and 4 guys just wrote a Kiss. If it's Paul and Gene, it's Kiss. If it's a Kiss song, if it sounds like Kiss, it's Kiss. He'll say that because he wants to kill the myth of saying, well, Peter didn't play on that track. Wait a minute, Ace didn't play on that track. But he doesn't want to give credit to anybody else that did anything, or thank anybody else, or never say, the fucking solo Rick Derringer did on the beginning of Exciter was so great. Oh, he was so awesome for us. Or fucking whoever else they've had. They just,
he would never give credit to Rick Derringer for doing a solo on the Lick It Up album, because then people can be like, well, why did you have Rick Derringer on your album? You had Vinnie Vincent in the band, or you had whoever, like, because they just don't want to acknowledge that anybody else helped them to get to where they were. And I know, guys, you're listening to us right now. Sorry if this turns into a Kiss bashing. It happens once in a while with Zeus and I. It's because it's just because we're passionate about this band. Oh, I'm not apologizing for it. I'm just saying, if you're listening right now, wondering how we got down this rabbit hole, this is what happens when me and Zeus start talking about Kiss.
They can go listen to fucking Happy Go Lucky World, and we only play Kiss fun music and no fucking bad comments about Kiss.
Not here.
Just about this stuff.
Yep.
We love the band. They are far from perfect. And if you take this band too serious, then you don't know how to have fun. Seriously.
That's also
so
correct.
Let's be blunt here. And, this is a story. I mean, it's kind of a somber story and a somber episode, because we're talking about a guy that should have been a star in his own for having the talent to draw out Kiss. And that should have been able to translate with developing other artists or anything else, because he obviously had talent. And unfortunately, he ends up kind of broke, dying alone. And, listening to Brian talk about like being told that Sean died, I didn't know how that went. I didn't know Sean suffered for weeks. He was in the hospital and then he passed away. Brian's like, dude, I just talked to him yesterday. What do you mean he died?
Yep.
It was just like that. And, his family comes out and they're like, no, he wanted to get this book out. And Brian, is such a person of character, because he said, like you said, he's like, these are Sean's words. I'm not going to promote this book as though I'm Sean. I'm not going to go out there and do this. And because I said to him, why didn't you do the convention tours and all that? You could be selling this book. People would love to hear about it. It's like, because this is Sean's story. It's not really mine. And, he's honored that. He doesn't want to take this as credit for him. He's bringing Sean's words out. And he said, I didn't want to put anything in the book that wasn't directly said and quoted from the tapes I've had of Sean. So kudos to Brian. And I'm just so glad that I found this on my rabbit hole Kiss late nights, and where we were able to get him on and interview him.
Yeah, and I'll just wrap it up with this: that like I said at the beginning, and like we said during the interview with Brian, to kind of piggyback on what Zeus said, everybody should know who Sean is. He should not be known to Kiss insiders and Kiss freaks. You should know who Sean Delaney is, and the fact that he doesn't have that kind of esteem outside of the inner workings of the Kiss world is a shame. And that's why we were so happy to have Brian on and push this book and tell you guys about it and let people know, so that you can hear Sean's story and see how essential he was to the band.
Yeah, I've got, I had a fun, I always take notes when I read these books, Tom. So I have my note part out on my iPhone, chapter 1, chapter 2, all the way down. There's a couple quick things that I wanted to bring up. And obviously I have a lot more notes as we get deeper into this Kiss part of the, when he's firmly in Kiss in the middle.
Spoilers. No spoilers.
No, I'm not going to spoil it. But he made a point, this is obviously Sean, right? Yep. That he's like, and then Gene asked me to produce his album. He could have had anybody in the world produce this. He could have had I think he said John Lennon or something like. And I was like, dude, Sean, come on.
He didn't have John. He didn't have John Lennon.
Yeah. It was something like that. Somebody's huge name, and I'm like, dude, calm down, buddy. Let's take a step back. It is a big deal that somehow out of nowhere Gene asked you, because he trusts you, to produce his album. But let's not get carried away with that. But do you remember that part?
I do. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I do. I'm like, settle down, Gene. The Beatles aren't knocking on your door.
Yeah. And there's another great story that I want to bring to people's attention. And that is when they were doing the Kiss comic book.
Yeah.
And what Sean does, it's in the book. I've never heard that story.
Me neither. That's amazing.
And then he walks
again
into Villicon's room, and there's Stan Lee there and Steve Gerber. And I'm not going to tell you what happens, but just
it's just more amazing
holy shit.
More amazing things that I never learned from another Kiss book. And you're right. It's just stuff like that. You're like, wow.
Yeah. It's a great book. Solid read. Brian was a great guest, a nice find. And we really think, I can't say enough, go out, get this book. Sean Delaney's Hellbox by Bryan J. Kinnaird.
Awesome stuff. It was great. And we hope you guys enjoyed the interview and get the book and let us know what you think about it. You can probably read it in 1 or 2 days. It's that easy.
Yep. And then, so Tom, when we're done with an episode topic, what do we usually go to?
We go to a question, and we got this one from Facebook. This comes from Mark Schleim. Forgive me if I didn't pronounce that correctly. He says, the first time I saw Kiss was March 19th, 1995 in Madison, Wisconsin with Wasp as the opening band. Woo! I've seen Kiss 6 times with the following opening acts: Wasp, the Melvins, D-Generation, Aerosmith, Motley Crue, and the fucking Painter. That's his words. My favorite opener was Wasp. My question for you is, what was your favorite opening act for the Kiss shows that you have attended? So for me, I'll start with that. For me, first show, Slaughter opened up for them. Fucking awesome. That was 1990. The Stick It To You album was huge. They sounded great. And then a lot of the other opening acts were just, like they had Buck Cherry one year. Terrible band. Sorry if you guys like them. That band's horrible. One opening band that really surprised me, and I remember Zeus and I kind of looking at each other being like, holy shit, these guys are good. And this was at the Freedom to Rock show. I think that was 2016. Worcester was the Dead Daisies.
Yeah. I remember. Who the fuck is this band?
And then I go and look at them and I'm like, shit, these guys have been around for a while with some great musicians, and they sounded awesome. So that's who I would say for me.
I'm going to cheat.
Okay.
I'm going to say Def Leppard.
Okay, that's kind of a cheat, but
right? When they did the tour with Def Leppard.
Okay.
And I'll say that's better than the Aerosmith one, because Aerosmith was playing that blues album just come out. It was fucking horrible.
What, Honkin' on Bobo? that show was fucking brutal, dude.
Yeah, and this was in Boston, and Kiss blew them away.
Oh, it was absolutely, yeah. But Kiss is lately, and our this past 15, 20 years, whatever, Kiss is not. We've talked about this before. They do not do well with opening acts.
No, they're not. That's not their thing.
No, but that's a good question. And Mark, thank you for reaching out and sending that to us. We appreciate it.
Yep. Tom, where can people find us?
So we got our email, shoutitoutloudcast@gmail.com. We will respond to your email. We might read it on the air. So use that email, and then we're on all the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Reach out to us, comment on the show, comment on episodes, whatever you want. We love to interact. As you can see, we read a lot of the comments on the air. We also have an awesome Facebook group that just broke 600 members there, the Shout It Out Loudcasters on Facebook. Jump in there. It's a great place for fans to post pictures, articles, stories, ask questions, just talk about the band we love. All eras, no toxic Facebook group mentality there. And we're part of the awesome Pantheon podcast family of shows. So you can find us on their website as well. And we're on all the big platforms. Any way you can find a podcast, we are out there. And don't forget our good friend Ed at clicktshop.com. He sells awesome Shout It Out Loudcast merch, as well as awesome Kiss gear, or Kiss-inspired gear, I should say. So Ed's our buddy. We love him, so check him out as well.
Absolutely. Guys, keep up the reviews as well. 5-star child reviews on Podchaser, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you'd like to give us those 5-star reviews. They help people find us. It moves us up in the rankings, and it allows people to hear our show more interaction, more fun. That's how we look at it. And when you play this episode, you'll probably will have heard our other live cast episode, which probably played last night. And that is what we discussed about the previous 10 albums that we reviewed. And we hope you had fun with that. And you can listen to that as well, which will get dropped later on next week on Tuesday or Wednesday. That episode will come out. But in the meantime, keep coming with emails, shout it out loudcast@gmail.com. Keep giving the 5-star reviews and keep sending us messages, direct messages, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you'd like. We love interacting with you guys. And other than that, Tom, we usually go to famous last words. You got any?
Oh, always. Right on the mirror with your lipstick. Much too vain. Got scattered brains. You used me just enough to get off. Act your age. Get off your stage.
Awful album.
Oh, how dare you.
How dare you. How dare you.
I want to see if I can do this. I'm going to try to do this in an accent that I haven't really tried, but I want to see if I can pull this off. I'm going to try to do it the best I can. I'm going to work on it. Hopefully it'll get as good as my Ace impression or my Gene. Hey, fucko. Don't let me find you sleeping with another man. Say you're going to be true. Instead, love them as you can. Fucko.
Oh, man.
I got to work on my Peter Criss fucking
Peter Criss Cola. I like it. I'll give you a solid effort there, but
you got to throw in the fucko. If you
of course,
fucko,
absolutely.
Then that's Peter Criss.
Of course.
Hey, fuckos. Why ain't you fucking ask me to sing this? What are you going to give that shit to fucking Rod Stewart for?
How come all my fucking singles go on the B-sides?
Why'd you say like B-sides?
B-sides. Zeus, thank you, buddy. As always, Kiss Army, thanks for listening. Hope you had a good time with this one. And check out Hellbox.
That's right. Tom, thank you very much. Brian, thank you very much. Kiss Army, thank you very much. And until next time, peace out, Girl Scout.